we are here in Gilbert, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's Gilbert?
Gilbert.
Yes. Okay. And we are here at Air Guitar with one of our wonderful writers, Marci, and two of the women behind Air Guitar. Would you guys mind introducing yourself?
My name is Kris DeMarco, one of the owners. And this is my lovely
Elissa Seitz.
And what exactly is Air Guitar? Because I know it's a little bit different than your average convenience store, if that's what you would call it.
So we like to call it an upscale, super cool food store. I think that's the new term that we...
I like it, yeah.
Because it's not really a convenience store, like in your traditional sense, but that's our new branded name is a super cool food store.
I mean, what more could you ask for in life than a super cool food store? And it's not just that either, because you've got all sorts of wine, local craft beer. I mean, it's a food and beer lover's dream in there. The wine selection is pretty massive for what I expected coming into it.
Oh, yeah.
180 different bottles, right? 90 red and 90 white.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the products that you guys have here? Because you mentioned super cool food store, but it's not necessarily just your average food products. You have a few specialty things as well, right?
Yeah. Elissa, you want to talk about
Sure,
that?
yep. We love that we partnered with Camelback Flower Shop and have amazing bouquets in there. It's just such an original, unique style. Some of our homemade pizza that we make on property is delicious, and we're trying not to eat it every day. We have a great ice cream bar with our famous cotton candy burrito that's beautiful, and a sugar bomb, delicious. Our coffee bar is amazing. We partnered with Intelligentsia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's just jump right into the cotton candy burrito, because I think that's something that everyone wants to know about. What is the story behind that, and do people have overdoses on sugar when they eat them?
Yes.
Those poor parents.
It's basically 3 big rounds of cotton candy that we lay out and kind of make into like a tortilla, per se. 3 scoops of ice cream, sprinkles, 3 scoops of bubblegum ice cream, sprinkles, and then you roll it up into a burrito and you cut it, and there it is. And it is a big seller. Big seller.
And is it predominantly families that come in with their kids, or is it even, folks like myself that come in and order?
Folks like yourself. I mean, it is everybody. We had a couple of guys come in the other day, and they ordered one, and they sat at the back bar and ate it. I think people are intrigued by it, obviously. And then what's not to love, really? I mean, cotton candy and
it's
ice
pretty
cream.
special.
I feel like it's better for older people to order than families with kids, because I can't imagine a couple of kids running around with that much sugar running through their veins. That sounds like a nightmare.
No, it is.
And so how did you guys come up with that? Is it something you saw elsewhere and you were like, oh, we got to have this at our spot, or how did that come together?
It was our partner, Eric, who is, of the 4 of us, I would say he's the one that is the most...
Sugar tooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got the sugar tooth. And he came to us and he's like, we have to do this. And we're like, okay. Because Elissa and I, being on more of the healthy side of things, Eric does have the sugar tooth. So he came to us and proposed it, and we're like, heck yeah, we're going to do that.
So we bought a cotton candy machine.
Yep.
Is that something that you guys... So let's actually jump into your guys' backgrounds a little bit. Do you come from a food and beverage background, or is this something you found your way into?
Well, I mean, 20 years ago, my husband and I started Postino Wine Cafe.
Okay.
And a year later, we're also founding members of La Grande Orange Grocery and Chelsea's Kitchen. And then we went on to start Upward Projects, which is the restaurant group, and we since have 16 Postinos. We also have Joyride.
So you know a thing or two about food and beverage, I would say.
Yes.
We can just stop there.
Yeah, right? Is this, like, at what point did you guys get into food and beverage, though? Was it something you grew up with?
Not myself. I was always in retail, so I was always on the. I was a buyer. I was always into design, architecture, But Craig, my husband, he was he started a Mexican concept with his buddies. He was, he started as a dishwasher. He likes to tell that story. So he's always been in that. He's always been in the food industry, and I've always been in the retail side. So together is how we kind of created everything that we did.
And are you an Arizona native?
I am. I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Can you believe?
I am not a native, but I grew up since I was 3 years old up in Scottsdale, went to Desert Mountain High School and all that. So I like to consider myself a native.
Yeah, and there's not many of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because my girlfriend is a native, but the rest of her family is not. At least her brothers are, but her mom and father and all that are not natives of Arizona. And it's interesting to see how Arizona, especially in the food and beverage culture, it seems like a great example of how Arizona is a melting pot of the rest of the United States and the world, really, because you've got, the Mexican culture that is obviously heavily influencing. You've got Italian culture from a lot of the people coming from Chicago and all that. And so what is your kind of family background?
Oh my gosh, my parents moved here in the 60s from Michigan.
Okay.
So culinarily, I mean, I'm Midwest at heart, right? I mean, we grew up with casseroles and, Taco Tuesday and pizza night. And that's as good as it got. Like, that's the kind of food we grew up on. My dad was a projectile fuse engineer for Motorola, and my mom was a high school college counselor. And
what is a projectile fuse engineer? I've never heard that phrase in my life.
Well, he worked for the government division of Motorola, and so there was a lot. He couldn't tell us a lot.
So you don't even know.
I don't really know exactly what he did.
He was a bright guy. We know that.
He was very bright, very into design, obviously, and architecture. And my mom was also into design. She was always redoing furniture and moving furniture around, and and I was a part of that because I was, as a young child, I was with her a lot while she was doing this, and she's gonna laugh when I tell this story, but when you redo furniture, you put stripper on, and I went to school one day and I said, I want to be like my mom, I want to be a stripper, and I came home and told her that. She's like, oh my God, that's horrible. That's awesome. Anyway, so that's kind of how I got into design. Like I grew up around that. Both parents really influenced me that way.
And so that's obviously become a huge skill in everything that you're doing now in the culinary industry, because, of course, Postino, a very recognizable brand, a very distinct vibe, if you will, when you go in there. How did Postino come about, and how did that concept get built out?
So my husband and I were married, and we were always looking for a place to go have a glass of wine. And really back then, I mean, we're talking like late 90s. There was no place to go get a glass of wine for an affordable price. I mean, usually you would be going to a resort and spending $25 on a glass of wine, and we had traveled to Italy a few times, and through those little towns you go and you're drinking the local wine, you're having a nosh, like they're bringing you local, little, charcuterie board, whatnot. And it was delicious and it was affordable, and we're like, why isn't this happening? And so we, that's kind of how Postino, that's how it was, it came to be. So we...
so before you got into the business, you were a connoisseur of food and beverage.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know if I was a connoisseur, but we enjoyed it very much. I mean, traveling a lot, going to different restaurants, and it was something that was very important to us, a big part of our life. So,
well, I mean, traveling through Italy and drinking local wine and eating local cheeses and whatnot, I think that classifies you as a connoisseur. So what about yourself? Tell me your life story.
Ooh, okay. I grew up in restaurants because my mom ran them in Texas.
Okay.
And worked them. Everyone else was at camp, and I was working all summer in these restaurants. So that's kind of a great, I think I got my work ethic from that. But I actually got more into food after I got married, and I had to learn how to cook, and every night was a different meal, and I started researching restaurants and just getting into the whole food scene, and definitely traveled a lot. And very similar paths. I'm surprised we weren't friends before now, Kris.
I know.
Are you an Arizona native?
I was born in Texas, but I moved here in 7th grade.
Okay, it counts.
Almost, right? 3.
Yeah,
7th
I
grade.
think so.
Yeah. So, that is...
And what kind of restaurants were you working in?
Oh, let's see. We had an American restaurant, and we also had a barbecue restaurant. It was Texas.
Okay.
We had to have a barbecue restaurant. So, yep. But I was young then when I moved here, and then, got married and started cooking a lot and started traveling and eating. That was basically it. But our business was actually a convenience store, which is not a culinary delight. Necessarily. It's more what's fast and easy, what people need when they're headed somewhere. So that's
which
more
is
of my
just as
background.
important, right?
It is sometimes, yes.
So when you say you were working in these restaurants, like the barbecue restaurant, were you whipping open the smoker and slinging briskets around, or what exactly were you doing?
Can you just see that? No, I was taking the money from these poor people. I'm like really young. I'm standing on like a ladder taking money from people at the cash register. So no, I wasn't dealing with the food.
But you were understanding and soaking up a lot of information about how these types of businesses operate.
Of course, which mainly is how many hours and how much labor is involved in running a restaurant. It's a lot. Yeah.
And I think those insights, you were mentioning that it built your work ethic, but it also gives you a really strong foundation of understanding later on, obviously, for what it takes to build a successful business in that industry.
You're exactly right.
Because doing the magazine, I've done a little bit of work with the magazine before the A Taste of AZ magazine, but never went to school for it or anything. And I feel like there's a major gap in my education where, the phrase, of course, you don't know what you don't know. I feel like I have a lot of that to make up for. But it seems like both of you, through your experiences in childhood, you kind of soaked up a lot of the information that was necessary to do what you're doing now.
Oh, 100%. And, I moved away after college for a few years, and so that kind of, I was in the Hawaiian Islands for 4 years, and I was thrown into a place that, first of all, it's such a different culture there, different foods, and I was really exposed to a lot more than I thought it would be. And it intrigued me a lot.
What brought you out there?
So after I graduated college, my mom, I was the youngest of 4 girls, and my mom's like, listen, you need to go just do something fun before you start your life and go get it out of the way. And
it's a cool mom.
I know. Thank God.
Smart.
Probably because she wanted to do that. She started a family right when she got out of high school. And so I moved out there with a friend of mine. We started a jewelry company, raised all this money. We moved out there, and we were only going to stay for 3 months, and I ended up staying for 4 years.
Wow.
So that's where I got into. I was a buyer for a retail clothing company that was based out of the Hawaiian Islands.
Liberty House?
What's that?
Liberty House?
Sergeant Leisure.
Oh, okay.
Yes. They started in Sun Valley, Idaho. They were a resort retail clothing company. So we were in throughout the Hawaiian Islands, Sun Valley, Laguna Beach, Park City, Utah. So we were in all these little resort towns.
And so, what were you doing on a day-to-day basis when you were doing that?
So I was the general merchandise manager for all of these locations, and so I was designing the lines for the store. We would do cut and sew. We had an embroidery and screen print facility in Salt Lake City, so we coordinate everything that we had was. So if you went to Maui and you wanted a Maui T-shirt, sweatshirt, that's what we were doing. We were private labeling everything, and it was...
My parents probably have about 50 T-shirts that you probably had your hand in some way.
Yeah, so it was a really great experience.
And then was it after that you came to Arizona?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the owners wanted to base themselves out of Scottsdale, and so they moved our entire company here. So I came home and was still working for them for a few years until Craig and I got married in had the brain, child of Postino.
And so I want to circle back to that because that's obviously, a powerhouse of Arizona, the culinary scene, right? So what is it like growing Postino into what it is today? I know that's a very loaded question, but...
It's like a baby.
It is. I mean, if you would have asked me 20 years ago if we would have had more than one, people thought we were crazy. We went, we were off the beaten path in an old post office building, and we had so much passion for it, and we knew it would work because we wanted it. We wanted something like that. And we didn't open our second Postino until 8 years later.
Wow.
And now we're about ready to open our 17th Postino in Houston.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so what was the approach with it? Was it just kind of like what you were saying of, it's something that we wanted so we opened it, or did you have a very specific idea in mind?
The specific idea of it being more user-friendly and being able to, I think that back in the 90s, at least for us in Arizona, it was very scary to go and order a glass of wine because if you weren't educated on it, you didn't have a lot of confidence in ordering,
Sure.
Something that you knew you would like. And so we wanted to make it a little bit more pedestrian and easy to use. And so we weren't going to do the flights. We just wanted to offer some really great glasses of wine at affordable prices with some tasty food.
And I think back then, too, I feel like that we always thought, well, if you're going to go out and get a glass of wine, a good one would be expensive. Mm-hmm. And so to change the whole mindset of saying, well, you can actually get a glass of wine at a reasonable price.
Yeah. I mean, and so our by the glass list, I think started at $9 a glass. And I mean, you can get some really good wines for $9 a glass. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, and I have to say my perspective and opinion toward Postino is less wine-oriented because I remember going there with my girlfriend and having birthdays and family gatherings after my parents moved out to California many a time from all the different Postino, maybe not all the different Postino locations, but the Arcadia one, and then when the one in Kierland popped up, that's my area, so been there several times. And the food is fantastic as well. So how did the food kind of build into it? Was that in the inception of it, or did it grow out over time?
Oh, it definitely grew over time. So we, originally we were just going to have little cheese plates, little, charcuterie boards. I think we had some desserts. And we were also going to have like a little market in there that sold like fresh bread. And well, when people started coming, they wanted something to eat.
Yeah. I remember too, y'all didn't have a kitchen, right?
Well, we did,
you had a kitchen, but it didn't have like
tiny kitchen. That we were just, no ovens or stoves or anything like that.
I remember that from the beginning.
Then we started to introduce the bruschetta and the salads, and it really took off, more so than we ever thought. And then it became what it is today. I mean, it just. We filled a niche that people really, really wanted. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a fun ride. I love Postino. It's our baby.
When I was pretty young when a lot of at least the initial unfolding of Postino was taking place, but at least when I started to experience it, say around 2012, 2013, there weren't a lot of restaurants or places that you could go to that had that kind of vibe, the young and hip vibe of just going and hanging out and enjoying yourself. And it was a little bit more, I don't know the exact word I would describe it, but do you have a word that you describe the feeling that you're going for when you're in there?
Well, I mean, listen, we wanted to be a part of a community, and we wanted people to... we wanted it to be an extension of our living room, and it really was back then because we brought our couch down there and our chairs. I mean, we were rubbing two sticks together to get the thing open.
Sure.
And we wanted it to be a gathering place, obviously, where you could meet your friends, family, have a nice glass of wine, and you could either make meal out of it or just have a glass of wine. You can stay as long as you want. You can bring your dogs. I mean, we just wanted it. I think to me, looking back, we wanted it to just be this gathering place for the community. And I think it's done that in all these different places that we've opened. I mean, now we've, speaking of Postino and Gilbert, that was our first suburban market. And we, Joe Johnston gave us the confidence to come out here just because of what he was doing with Liberty Market and Joe's Farm Grill. And today, Gilbert is one of our busiest locations.
Well, and that's a very interesting thing for me to witness, because when I was born, Gilbert, obviously I don't know exactly what it looked like back then, but from what I've been told, it was very, very different than what it has become now. And now it's kind of a hot spot, more so all the time for food and beverage. How rooted have you guys been in this community over the past several years, and how has that kind of grown, and how have things changed for you?
I mean, we haven't been rooted here outside of your Postino experience, but everybody kept saying it's happening. There's tons of families. There's tons of people. Growth. They want cool things. They don't want corporate chains. They want something local and fun and with some soul. So I think that was a huge pull for us too.
Yeah, I mean, Gilbert is the second safest city in the U.S., one of the fastest growing municipalities in the U.S. Lots of young families, healthy lifestyle. They're looking for this sense of community, like what Joe's created with Agritopia. I should say Joe and Cindy, his beautiful wife. So we've been in the Gilbert area for Postino since I want to say 2010.
Okay.
And the amount of growth that we have seen since then has been exponential.
Yeah.
So when this corner came available, we didn't even hesitate.
Did you know what you wanted to do with this corner? I mean, when you started talking about merging convenience stores with hospitality, did you know, or were you all still brainstorming?
No, we knew. We were
You
ready. Because we had been looking
100%.
at some other spots and some other properties. And I think I think Eric and Craig were touring with Joe this epicenter behind us, and they noticed this block of land that was sitting here empty. And Eric said, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, MidFirst owns that." And Eric said, "We want it." So that's kind of how it started, and we got it.
Well, this must be a wonderful spot for you guys, because while it's not completed yet, behind the camera filming this podcast this is a housing development, I would
This
assume,
is
right?
Epicenter, 300 units, and there will be 10 restaurant-style uses on the bottom level. Hopefully, most of the restaurants and the tenants will be in by spring of 2022.
Okay.
So it'll be a game changer for us too. I mean, hopefully this will be their community gathering space, and they'll use it like
Do you just walk out onto your patio, take a big bite of a cotton candy burrito, and just look at this in pure excitement, waiting for it?
I am happy for the people
yes.
living there. I've met people that are waiting to get in here, and they said they're so excited to walk across the parking lot and have a place to buy not just convenience store items, but groceries and grab and go, and it's pretty exciting for them.
Yeah, my one grievance with the air guitar concept is that it's not in my neighborhood.
Me too.
We feel the same way.
Yeah,
we're
we
like,
love
we
it in
need
our
to get
hood.
whatever.
In my area, so I'm basically right by Postino in Kierland,
Okay.
so about 5
Nice.
minutes away on the other side of the 101 by that Target. And there's not really that much local in that area. You have Hush Public House that just popped up recently, and now he's got Vanilla Gorilla, which is basically the best beer bar that I have near me that you can get retail stuff to go and whatnot. And then I have an AJ's, but it's nothing like this area where it seems like every time I come into town, there's another brand new place popping up that's local. Not necessarily, I don't know if high end is the best word, but you can get really quality food and beverage that is supporting Arizona and supporting the community. And so as you guys see this town develop, how do you think air guitar fits into that? Because I know, you got this new housing development here. You were mentioning that you want it to be a community gathering place. Is that kind of what your goal is?
Yeah, Gilbert I think is doing such an amazing job welcoming us and actually looking for local businesses to plant.
And are you talking
here.
about the city is searching
yes,
for people like that?
Yep.
Okay.
We had such great experience with them. And I know Joe was definitely the helm of bringing us into this whole equation
Sure.
and introducing us to people in the city. But the city just seemed very excited to have local businesses here, and so they really paved the way for us, and I think it's an amazing thing because now we all get to enjoy these great businesses popping up here.
Well, and it seems like wonderful timing as well, because you've got other parts of the valley that are more established, and they have to kind of make up for lost time when adding new places. And if you have a strip mall where all 10 places are filled out and half of them are chains, how do you get new local businesses in there? Whereas when brand new structures are being built and you're seeking out local businesses, this Gilbert Mesa area seems like it's really kind of developing more and more and more and becoming the kind of place that people would want to move into.
I think Joe has obviously had a big part in that, and he'll say this himself. He's a dreamer, he's a doer,
visionary.
He wants to surround himself with the same kind of people and businesses, and he's really created that for so many people. So
well, and
thank you,
he's
Joe.
doing it from the ground up as well, right? From Joe's Barbecue that's been there for many, many years and is one of the pillars of that Gilbert Main Street area. And then you've got Agritopia, which is sending a subliminal message in my mind to the people that are eating there of how important it is to support local, but then on top of that, how Gilbert is such an agricultural area.
Yeah.
Does that kind of help what you're doing? I know you don't necessarily sell a bunch of farm-to-table products here, but does that play a role, do you think?
I mean, I think that maybe some of the local products that we're carrying, definitely.
You do have some local produce in there.
Yeah, so we are partnering up with. We did partner up with a company called Bird Dog Produce. Which do you know Andy Waituli?
Yes.
Andy Ituli.
Yes.
Yeah, so he started Bird Dog Produce, and it's a great. It's a subscription-based model too, where you can get it sent to your house, and it's fresh, delicious produce. So we partnered up with him.
And is that like essentially a farm box, or what does that product
Well,
look like
I mean,
for people
here
coming?
you can buy an avocado or an apple or the guacamole salsa kit, which is great.
I love it.
And if you would like to sign up for his produce delivery, you can. But if you just need a lemon or a lime, or you can also get that here.
Right.
And so let's circle back to air guitar, because this went through almost a Postino podcast for a little bit there, and then
I don't blame you.
Let's
It's
bring it back,
interesting.
right? Yeah. Well, it's fun for me because I've been there so many times, and now I'm bringing it all full circle, hearing about how it came to be. But circling back to air guitar, so right now we are on this beautiful patio. I'm glad we sat where we did because I got the camera shooting at this wonderful backdrop of these plants here. It's a very inviting patio and a great spot to kind of sit down and enjoy yourself. What were your guys' goals when you were kind of constructing the vision of this patio?
Well,
Maybe more along the design sense as well.
we definitely wanted outdoor spaces. We wanted to have shade, so that's why the canopy is so enormous and comes jetting out to give us some natural shade. A lot of this planning was happening during COVID, and we thought we better make some pods. We better make spaces that people feel like they can be in their group and not necessarily in a big crowd. Plus, it's more warm and inviting anyway. So I think that's kind of how we were looking at it.
And you have two patios. You have one on the, what would this be, the north,
and one on the
northwest side, and then one on the southeast side.
At any given time of the day, the idea was that you could sit on one side or the other and be in shade.
Right.
So that was
Very intentional.
definitely very intentional.
Well, and now that we're coming into season, so have you guys been open? You haven't been open when it's been nice weather out, correct?
No, this is it. This is the first of it. It's so nice.
Do you guys just hang out here and soak up the nice weather? Or?
I mean, I wish. No,
because we have
Not
time
enough
to
time.
just
Yeah.
That'd be lovely. No, but what we love is we're seeing families come in with sometimes, like after a sporting event, they're all crowded around. We have a great picnic table isn't giving enough justice, but this beautiful table outside for a big group, and we have couples coming with their dogs and people with their strollers, and they're hanging out outside, and that makes me so happy when I see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that brings a question up in my mind of like, it's obviously good to have a successful, profitable business and all that, but like, what has been the most satisfying part of what you guys put together? Is it seeing some little kid dig into an ice cream cotton candy burrito, or is it just seeing families have a good time on your patio?
I mean, I think it's both, right? It's that whole community aspect. It's, bringing a new concept to life, first of all, that people are reacting to in a positive way. It's been super fulfilling for me, and how people are using it, which is exactly that, just seeing the people and already starting to recognize customers that are coming more than once. So
What I think is really cool is how they basically reinvented the concept of what a convenience store means to people.
Sure.
We were talking earlier, and they can speak to it better than I can, but they were saying that in their brainstorming, they were talking about how often do you go to a convenience store these days? And I said, well, I really only do when I'm traveling cross country, and it's only by necessity. And so y'all can take it from here, but how you design this to be more of a destination.
Yeah, so, my husband and I are in the hospitality industry, and Eric and Elissa are from the convenience store industry, and we wanted, there was a need for, Elissa and I had this need, if we were going to go into a convenience store, we wanted something, I wanted to be able to grab a kombucha or a healthy grab-and-go salad, and you just couldn't get that.
Sure.
You couldn't find that. And so that's kind of where we birthed the whole idea of the concept, bringing the two together, what if, and the idea of creating something that hadn't been done before was super intriguing to us. So that's...
And we have huge amount of people saying, this is such an amazing concept. And they're excited and they're positive and optimistic. It's really fun to see people welcome a new concept as opposed to being critical or negative. It's a lot of people think, oh, why isn't everybody doing this yet? So it's kind of a fun.
Well, so from someone who's been in the convenience store industry and has had experience with other concepts that aren't exactly like this but have parallels, what is the biggest kind of shift that you made to really make this place distinguished from other places you've worked with?
Well, the design in the building is drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah,
we worked
absolutely.
with Jack DeBartolo and the DeBartolo architects, and I thought that was a nice pull. I don't particularly love going into, a convenience store is a convenience store, but we wanted something really special and light and bright and make your eyes happy.
Yeah.
So I think that is definitely a huge shift.
Well, when I think of a convenience store, I think of like, they've got the huge posters on the front that say, 6 packs of Modelo for $8, and you got some sandwich stand in the back that you don't even really know if someone's manning it, and you just kind of wait there for a couple minutes, and you're like, can I get some help over here?
Right.
Whereas
Bad
this
coffee.
place is the exact opposite of that. Yeah, just rolling up, it's almost like, what is this building? If you don't know what it is, it's so beautiful and high end. Maybe one of the last things you would think about is a convenience store. So when you're going through the design phase of something as magnificent as this structure is, what does that look like for someone who's never done something like that before?
We had so many fun meetings with the architects about this. We wanted lots of glass. We wanted lots of shade and beautiful patios. And then from there, it's just like this slow churning process of what about this? What about this? And we want to make sure we have all the things we need, but we still wanted it open and bright. It's quite a process.
And we wanted to deliver something to the community that was user-friendly,
Right.
that was, I guess, how do you describe something that you could feel comfortable coming into,
Welcoming, yes.
very welcoming, because some convenience stores I don't want to go into,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, especially at night.
But we also didn't want a jewel box. We wanted it to be warm and friendly, not so precious that it's untouchable.
And I think at the end of the day, we wanted the product to stand out. We wanted
Right.
even though the building is the is the shining star, we also wanted the product inside to really stand out. And one of the things that we did for the design is we kept all of the merchandisers at 5 feet because we
Okay.
wanted to be able to see all the way through to the building. That was very important to us. And a little bit, we added a few elements that normal convenience stores don't have, like a big coffee program and the hand-dipped ice cream and, the fresh flowers.
Fresh produce.
Fresh produce. So
So, the design is obviously the design and architecture are just one piece of the many pieces that kind of hold up, this concept and make it what it is. And so I'm curious, when you're doing these several meetings that last a long time, is it sketches on a napkin, or are they putting stuff together just based on the conversation that you guys have and you're giving your thoughts on it? What does that exactly look like?
All of it. Both.
all of it. It's such a design, any kind of design process is super fun, just because you can start with one thing and the next thing you know, an hour later, like, oh, like there's so much discovery in it. And Jack, he and Jeff, they were such a great partnership. They got what we were trying to do, and I don't know, if you want to know like a typical day of design, we would go in and we'd have to design the microwave station or the coffee station, and picking out the materials that we were going to use, what's going to hold up, how are people going to use this place,
And so it's every minute detail. You're not talking about just a big overarching design concept.
We would stand next to a measuring tape to see if this is comfortable for people to put their plate into the microwave and then have a place to sit it afterwards, and have a garbage right there for them, and are the condiments right there or somewhere down. So it was
minute details, but that's the fun part to me.
Well, and that's how you create an experience that feels seamless for a customer that walks in, and it almost seems it's this weird not catch-22, but it's this weird, trying to think of the word to describe it. The fact that you put so much time into the smallest little details, and then they go unnoticed, but that's what you're hoping for, right? Is you're hoping that you designed it so well that people don't even think about it, and it's just that easy to use. Is that kind of, I'm sure it is the experience that people are having when they're coming in here. But
100%. And it's always in those details, right? In anything, whether you're designing a house or a restaurant or a convenience store. One of the things that I know that we wanted to touch on was our energy portal. I don't know if you know that we have an energy portal.
No, I was not aware.
How did you miss it?
So,
why didn't we do the podcast in the energy?
We should have.
That sounds awesome.
It's a little small for the podcast.
Is it okay?
Clearly, we're the four of us, the four partners, are all into music, and we're constantly talking about energy, people's energy, and how to bring energy to the concept. And somebody early on wanted to do lasers shooting out of the building. This is some of these some of these design meetings where like Jack and Jeff were like, "Oh my gosh, how are we gonna what?"
I think they thought it was a joke, and it was not.
They're
a
like,
joke.
I can see why it took so long when you're sorting through
and
lasers.
we keep pushing for something that is going to bring energy and create energy, and so they're like, well, maybe not the lasers, but maybe we could do like an energy portal. So they actually did design. There's an energy portal. It's a tube that comes through the roof, And at certain times of the day, the sun, which is where we get most of our energy anyway, shines down through this energy portal, and it creates, whether or not, wherever the sun is, it creates either a small circle or a large circle, and you can stand under this portal.
Yep.
And you can get energy from the universe, which is what we really want you to do. So,
well, that's a pretty cool
just so you
little,
know.
It's almost like an Easter egg,
I
if
mean,
you will.
It is.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And so when you brought that to the architects, were they stoked on it, or were they like...
Well, no, I mean, we wanted the lasers, and they said, what about a portal? We think we can pull that off. I mean, that was basically how that went. But so those are the kind of design meetings that we were having.
Well, that's how you know that you found a great architect team, is when you're asking for lasers and they propose a energy portal.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, can't really get much cooler
right.
than an energy portal, right?
Right.
So what are some of the other interesting components about it in there? I know we've gone through it very generally. I talked about the wine selection, like that, for instance. How do you select what wines that you want on there?
So we were very adamant about making it a super easy experience for the customer, that you didn't have to have somebody hand selling you wine. So Craig came up with this concept of $15 wine, $25 wine, and $40 wine.
Okay.
Because really, when you go into a store, you either know you're gonna spend $15, $40, or $100. You know what you're gonna spend. You already know. So then once you get there, it's like, do I want red or white? And everything that we have in there has been selected. I mean, everything's good. So we're not worried about you getting a bad bottle of wine.
Sure.
You just need to know how much you want to spend. And then we have a bonus round, which is the more expensive wines if you want to spend $100. We have a little section that you can get.
Yeah, you could either get silver oak, or if you wanted to, you could get a bottle that's actually made of plastic, so it won't break. You know? So it's like two ends.
We cover all the spectrum.
Yes.
Well, and the convenience store component of that makes it very nice for, once this place behind us is built out, they don't have to drive to a Total Wine or an AJ's or something to find that high-end stuff. You've got it all captured in here. And so you also have a great local craft beer section. I'm curious, are you both beer people or not so much?
We went through a stage at Four Sons, which is our convenience store, where we decided to get into that craft scene, and we went all up and down Southern California, going to all the little tiny breweries, and that was a lot of fun. And brought in several things that Arizona hadn't ever had before, and even opened up growler stations, which is basically craft beer on tap. We've since been able to get it into the cooler section, and we've gone away from the growlers because it really does, it's a time thing, and we really were about convenience, get in and get out quickly, so people prefer to grab and go. So for a long time, I was definitely a beer girl. I think I burned out and I moved back to wine. Yes.
See, I'm venturing more into the wine and cocktail side of things, but beer is my central drink of choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your fave?
What?
What's your favorite?
That's a tough question. The best beer I think I've ever had was from Saddle Mountain Brewing out in the West Valley, and it was a white wine barrel-aged Belgian Tripel, and it was one of the most incredible barrel-aged anythings I've had before. Because typically when you get barrel-aged beer, it's darker beers, right? That's what stands up to that aging process. And I don't know that I've ever had another beer aged in white wine barrels, so that was a pretty novel experience. My go-to, you can never go wrong with a Tower Station or a church music. I believe you have both of those in there. And, I love that I can go into just about any place around town and get those beers. But you guys have a pretty wide selection of local stuff along your massive wall of booze choices.
Right.
It's massive.
Yeah, I mean, we have Four Peaks. We have Santan. We have Huss. We have a good showing of local breweries.
And so people, they can't consume alcohol on site, correct?
Oh yeah,
they
we have
can.
a Series 7, which is on and off premise. Yeah. So you can come in and grab your healthy grab and go, or your bag of Cheetos, whatever you prefer. Grab your wine or beer, and you can sit on the patio and
Man, I have something to do after this, but I wish I didn't, because it sounds nice, especially with this breeze going by right now. Just enjoy
Should we
some.
ask somebody to bring it over to us now?
I mean, maybe. I'm not going to turn that down. So what are, I know you guys just opened, but what are your plans going forward? I'm sure you're very excited for people to get out and enjoy this wonderful weather that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely just really concentrating on this initial location, and, as Craig would say, 400 to 500 more of these someday.
Okay,
that's our goal.
That's a pretty lofty goal you got there. And so
got to set some high goals.
When you're thinking in these grandiose terms, obviously, like you said, focus on this location for now. But is that something that you guys have conversations about frequently, where you're just like, what could this become? Because it seems like, this kind of concept, there's a lot of room for it in a market where, like we were talking about before, most convenience stores, and I don't remember the exact phrase you used at the beginning to describe it, but most places that are similar in nature to air guitar.
That would be a super cool food store.
Yes, there's not too many super cool food stores around is the point I'm making, right?
We need more. Absolutely, we talk about it all the time. People approach us quite often, ask us to put a spot in their area, so that'll be exciting.
I mean, I think the goal right now is we're just adapting and adjusting, we're tweaking, we're bringing in new products, we're trying new things. We're gonna do a mimosa Sunday, and you know what I mean. We're just tweaking. We're tweaking it along the way. We're listening to what the customers want and how they want to use the place, and that's kind of our focus right now.
We spend a lot of time talking to people when they come in and asking if it's their first time, and is it what they expected? Are they finding what they want and need? And to me, that's the best part, is getting feedback, so we know exactly how to pivot and make sure everybody's taken care of properly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I said it before, if once the time comes to open a new place, if it's not in North Scottsdale, Kierland area, you're going to get an upset text from me asking what's wrong.
Okay, you'll be number 2.
Awesome.
Coming your way.
And Chris knows I love this story, but will you please tell the story behind the name Air Guitar?
I know. I was going to say, we were talking about Energy Portal, and I thought that would segue perfectly into how we got Air Guitar.
Gosh, okay, so there's the 4 of us, friends, traveling together all the time, music. Lots of margaritas.
The best margaritas.
You guys sound like good friends to have.
We're fun.
So we're going to pick Eric up at the airport, the 3 of us, Craig, Elissa, and I. We're picking Eric up at the airport. We're in the car, and we've already talked about this concept, because this has been in the works for 4 years.
Okay.
And we're trying to come up with a name, and all of a sudden, Guns N' Roses' Paradise City comes on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Talk about an energy portal.
Eric starts going into his...
He's really excellent at air guitar.
He's a master air guitar.
He really is.
Does he do the competitions? The air
he
guitar
should.
competitions?
No, but there's like world championships.
You need to have one of those here.
Trust me. It's on the list.
Perfect.
So anyway, all of a sudden we're like, what about air guitar? And everybody...
Chris did it.
Everybody in unison was like,
that's it.
That's it.
Because it's a feeling, it's a vibe. We're not being literal.
It's an
about
energy.
How do you feel when you start air guitaring to your favorite song? It's just like, it feels so good. And that's what we want.
I imagine that was a beautiful moment that you guys all are like, oh my God, that's it. And Paradise City is playing in the background. It's just,
what more could you ask for? It was perfect. It was perfect.
And at that moment, a beam of sunlight came into the guitar, or came into the car.
A natural laser.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes. I'm telling you, if you could spend the day with us, you would understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to. I'm sold at this point, right? Well, fantastic. Marci, did you have anything else that you want to ask before we wrap it up?
I think I hit most of my questions. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. It's been so much fun.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for getting the word out on air guitar.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening, if you'd like to learn more, see more, check out the next issue of A Taste of AZ magazine, which will be coming out in January 2022. That will be our first anniversary issue. And Marci will be doing a wonderful article on air guitar. So keep an eye out for that.
So you can read about it.
Thanks,
and
Marci.
just one more thing I do kind of want to touch on. So y'all were talking about the meals to go. So I think it's really interesting for people to know that they contracted with M Catering,
Yep, M Culinary.
M Culinary.
We worked with them on 50 items for the grab and go section, and they're a big part of our business.
So is it Michael Dimaria? And so he used to have this restaurant, late 90s, Michael's at the Citadel. So a lot of people might recall that. And then when that closed in the late 2000s, did he go straight into, I think, just catering?
Yeah, and they actually, part of their business also is they have these mobile units that they go out if there's a fire, and they feed the firefighters.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty great.
It's really, really impressive what they do. And they're just so great to work with. Local company.
Yep. Super professional and
And I love how you can buy healthy gluten-free items right next to Cheetos. So
right.
What are some
right.
of the
Have
more
a choice.
popular grab-and-go meal items?
Oh my gosh! I mean, we have a great cauliflower bowl with chickpeas, which is so delicious. We do. M Culinary also does these sushi stacks.
oh, those look good.
I eat those a lot.
Yeah.
I know those are real good. Great sandwiches.
Kale and quinoa salad. I asked for that. I needed grains in our salads. Yes.
They do breakfast sandwiches.
Oh, and they told me at the coffee bar that y'all are, the pastries are now done by Elliot Inc. Is that Elliot from Nokowich? Wow, that's another name in the valley.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Let's see. Elliot was, I actually keep running into him hiking, and he said,
Oh,
hey,
really?
I make pastries now. I was like, great. And this is years ago. So as time went by, we just managed to hook him in and ask him to make a special line for us. And they're moist and delicious and beautiful, and we're thrilled that he's providing those for us.
Yeah.
What kind of pastries are we talking?
I mean, Elissa and I just split a pumpkin muffin this morning.
Good.
All
good.
different kinds of muffins,
Cookies
brownies,
and-
cookies, Rice Krispie treats.
It'll change seasonally.
That sounds delicious.
He's
That
Yeah.
sounds
a
very good.
true. He's like one of the very first foodies I met in
Oh, yeah.
town. Elliot was.
he's great.
Is, yeah.
Yep.
And then,
That's great.
did we talk about Camo Black Flower Shop? Teresa Wilson does all our flowers. So beautiful. The flowers are actually also set up on a $15, $25, and $40 price range. So you know, like, how much you want to spend on flowers as well.
Right.
Wild Tonic Kombucha on Tap, which
Oh, really?
I've listened to your podcast.
Okay, great. I feel so honored.
Which is, it was so interesting. I learned a lot after I listened to that podcast. So that's great too that we're working with them, local out of Cottonwood, Arizona. Yeah.
They have some incredible stuff and just such an interesting story.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh, such an interesting
it's beautiful
story.
to see a place like this that takes so many of those local products from so many different people, from the Shop Beer Co. to the local pastries that you're getting, local flowers, even to the Jun Kombucha made up in Cottonwood. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely check it out. Thank you
Right?
for throwing that out there.
And I didn't know that 1 in every 3 items that you consume food-wise are pollinated by a bee. I had no idea.
I
I
didn't
didn't know
either.
that either.
That was so
That was on the
interesting.
podcast.
That was on the
I didn't know
podcast. That was
know
on the
what that says about me.
podcast. It was so interesting. But she's an interesting person. I'd love to meet her someday.
Yeah, I mean, just interviewing her, and when I was taking photos, she was looking at me with this just like a genuine smile, and I was wondering, is she just enjoying watching me? And she said, I love watching artists work, and I don't really classify myself as an artist, but she said that, and I'm like, that made me feel so good, just
Yeah,
someone
that's so
appreciating the
great.
work I'm doing. So shout out to Holly. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for
thanks,
her sitting
Holly.
down with us, and thank you guys for supporting businesses like her.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this. This has
Yeah,
been great.
absolutely. The pleasure is mine, and I think I speak for Marci as well saying that.
Definitely.
So
Thank
thanks for
you.
making some time, and
Yeah.
keep an eye out for that article like I mentioned.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you two so much.
Thanks so much.